And what I saw was just the outline of like a head and shoulders and arms and a body and legs. I couldn't quite make out where the feet were just because the way the light was on the grass, but it was just this like an invisible person, humanoid shape.
On this episode of the Cryptid Crew podcast, I would like to introduce to the show outdoorsman, family man, Stephen Smith. Stephen, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to have you and looking forward to this and a fascinating and mysterious encounter that you had in Montclair, California in the early 90s, which is near the San Gabriel mountain range, correct?
That's correct.
Yes, and the San Gabriel mountain range has a ton of, I'm going to say high strangeness.
It is. We have one of the local legends of California is the Los Gigantes Oscuros, which is the Dark Watchers, tall black shapes that you see them on the hill far away and they just sort of watch you. Never seen anything like that, but that's one of the things up there. There's the Lido Creek Monster, which is described as a big hairy thing that hangs up to the creek where prospectors used to pan for gold. There's Yucca Man, which is like kind of like a Bigfoot, but they're taller, thinner, lighter in color. Like think of like the surfer dude version of Bigfoot. That's what they have in that area. So
yeah,
a lot of stuff up there.
A lot of stuff, yeah. UFOs as well.
A lot of UFOs, yeah.
Yeah, quite a bit. So I'll tell you what, let's tell the listeners and myself about the encounter that you had in the early 90s.
Right, so this was my freshman year of high school, so it was 91, 92, and I want to say this was probably early 92, like February, March. I went to Montclair High School at the time, and my house lived like right down the street, like half a mile away off of Central Avenue, which is a main drag there. So this is not up in the mountains, hidden away from people. This is like right in the middle of suburbia. And my normal routine was to, my parents and my sisters would go off to school in the morning, and I had the house to myself. I could go to school, come back, and it would be 6, 7 o'clock in the evening before anyone came back. So I was there by myself all the time. And for a teenager, young boy, that was great. On this particular day, I was doing dishes, and we didn't have a dishwasher. So the process was you fill one side of the sink with hot water, and the other side was empty, and then you had a draining. And this was also, California in the 90s, so we were always under drought conditions. So I filled up the sink with just enough hot water to cover a couple of glasses, like laying sideways on the sides. That way, 4 or 5 inches of water would cover all the glasses. And I would scrub each glass individually and set aside. And once they were all scrubbed, then I would rinse them off on the dry rack. That'll all be so I'm sitting there scrubbing a glass, and out the back window, there's a window right above the sink, like all houses have, apparently. And movement caught my eye, something moving from left. And what I first thought was that there was a balloon or a kite or something with a big length of fishing wire hanging down, because it wasn't a shape, or just a shape I saw, nothing to it, just this line just walking. And I thought that was kind of odd. It had kind of like a head shape at the bottom and then sort of down. I didn't know what it was. I'm like I said, I thought it was a spring. Maybe the wind blew it into the shape. Kind of looks like a person, but that can't be a person because there's no one there. Then the shape went under a tree. So if it was a balloon or anything, that string would have got caught in the branches. And that's when I got a good look at it. One's in the shade of the tree. And what I saw was just the outline of like a head and shoulders and arms and a body and legs. I couldn't quite make out where the feet were just because the way the light was on the grass. But it was just this like an invisible person. Like, my frame of reference at the time was like the movie The Predator. That you see this silhouette, but it's transparent otherwise. It stood there, and I didn't know what it was. I'm looking out the window. I'm like leaning over the sink, like pushing my face against the glass, practically trying to get a better look at what this was. In my mind, I'm like, hey, it's not a fishing line, or maybe it's fishing line caught in a draft, or maybe someone bought a mannequin and it came in a plastic wrapper, and the wrapper is like floating there in the wind. Or I was trying to figure out what could this be, but it's maintaining this humanoid shape. If it was a screen or plastic, it would have crinkled and morphed or whatever, but it was just maintaining the shape. It sort of seemed to be rocking back and forth, like it was shifting its weight from one foot to the other as I'm watching it. And so it's the shape of it meant it was either looking right at me or facing straight away from me. But I'm guessing it was looking at me. It saw me. It saw that I could see it. And this maybe went about 3 or 4 seconds. It just stood there, and I set the glasses down. I picked up a towel to dry my hands as we go out the back door of the kitchen into the backyard and say, I'm gonna go see what this is. And at that point, it took off very quickly around the corner of the house. That corner of the house is there's a concrete driveway and then out into the front yard. So I thought, well, I better get out there fast because whatever it is, you get stuck in the fence or something. I better go. As I headed towards the back door, I heard a loud, hollow thud sound. That sounded like it came from inside the house, like something had fell or collapsed. So I went back into that. I hadn't gone outside yet. I went back to the kitchen, went down the hallway, and when I got to the end of the hallway in my room, I saw that my closet door was open. Now I have like an almost OCD habit of keeping doors closed. Doors closed, drawers are closed, everything. So having my door open was odd. When the stain disappeared around the corner of the house, that corner of the house is where my bedroom was at. So out my bedroom window, I could see the other side of the tree to kind of see if something's still out there. But the really strange part is in my closet on the top shelf, I had a shoebox with like trinkets in it, some action figures, some baseball cards, keychains, matchbox stuff. A little boy thinks is cool. That box was out in the middle of the floor, and all of the items that were in it were arranged in a circle around the box. And that was like, I saw that, and my first thought was, okay, the box fell out and it hit in such a way that everything splashed out in a circle. I don't know. That's weird. But it was also not on the floor in front of the closet. It was out in the middle of the room. It would have had to gone out like 3 or 4 feet and 2 feet over to get to that. So I don't know how that happened. So that's weird. But I went to my bedroom window and looked out to try to see, is that invisible thing still out there? And I looked around and didn't see it. Went back and I picked up all the stuff because everything was in a perfect line in a circle. I basically just like scooped my hands, sort of whoop, and skipped all up, put it back in the box. Put the box back in the closet, closed the closet door. Went back to the kitchen with the idea that I'll go back out and see if whatever that was is still out there. I hadn't made a connection when I got to the kitchen sink. The glasses I had scrubbed and put on one side were back in the other side. All the water was drained. All the glasses were now standing upright, full of water, arranged in a circle inside the sink.
You are kidding me.
Yeah, this sounds crazy, and I haven't shared the story in a while because it's like, it sounds too crazy. But I looked at the plug, and the plug still had like half an inch of water on it, so the plug was still there. The water hadn't drained out, but so it was like 6 or 7 glasses that were there, and they were all, one was like 2 inches from the top. I think that's like all the water that was in the sink at the time. But they're full of water and in a circle. At that point, I'm like, somebody move this. That means there's somebody in the house. And I reached under the kitchen sink. We had just done some plumbing work like a week before. So I had one of those big red monkey wrenches, the pipe wrenches. And I picked that up and I grabbed the cordless phone. I put it in my back pocket. And I checked the front door. It had it was locked. It was deadbolted. Had the safety latch on it. Went to the front door, checked all the windows, and the whole time yelling, "You better come out here, show yourself!" And screaming through the house at whoever it was that broke in. I was walking around expecting to find, some, neighborhood kid or someone had broken in. But the doors were locked, bolted. Every single window was closed, locked from the inside. I checked closets. I checked under bed. I checked the little crawl space area where we put stuff. I probably spent about 10 minutes or so just back and forth across the house, checking, double checking, triple checking every point of entry. And nothing was there. But someone had to be here and move the glasses like that. The glasses don't. The box I could think maybe kind of physics doesn't want that way, but maybe. But the glasses moving, I had no explanation for, other than somebody did this. And I pulled out the cordless phone. I only called 911 anyway. And but what do I tell them? So I'm trying to retrace my steps. What was going on? What happened? And that's why I'm like, well, I saw that thing in the backyard, and then it went around the house where my room was, and that's where I saw the first circle. And at that point, I'm like, I need to sit down. Where my mind is going with that, it shouldn't be going with that. Because at this point in time, in my mind, things like ghosts and aliens and monsters that was all a bunch of hogwash. None of that really exists. So I didn't think anything of it until after the fact. I was like, I have no other explanation unless that type of stuff is real.
Stephen, let me ask you this. While you were washing the dishes, did you feel like you were being watched prior to seeing the outline or the silhouette outside?
I didn't. I was just sort of staring mindlessly out the window. I think I was probably humming to myself or something. Just, I watched this just so many times. I was sort of like on autopilot, not really paying attention to anything. And it was just the movement that caught my eye. Like this thing was just traveling through, and I just happened to see it. It saw that I saw it, and then it decided to make contact, is my best guess.
Yeah, after we had talked initially, back in Colorado, I did a little bit of
Yeah.
research, and you had mentioned or referenced the name Glimmer Man.
Right. That's a known name that I've seen because like when this happened, there was internet was very brand new, early '90s. Uh, I told like a couple people about it, and it was like that's really weird, and it sounds like something I would make up. And then I sort of kept that to myself for a while, but started like researching like local folklore and legends from around the world to see if anything like this ever been reported before. And it's only really been the past 5 to 10 years that I started seeing other reports online. Now that everyone's online, and one of the names I've seen is a Glimmer Man or a predator or like a being made of liquid glass or saran wrap. And all I know is describing the same thing. That's fascinating. So now I'm like, okay, well, now I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to let my story be known. I've shared it a couple times on some online forums just to, hey, you know, I've experienced this too. In one
Right.
way, it's validation. Like, I'm not alone. I did imagine this. The fact that other people have also experienced the same thing. That's sort of a validation, but it's not that comforting because I still don't know what it was.
Right. Let me give you the definition I found. It says a paranormal entity described as cloaked, semi-invisible, or transparent, is what most witnesses report. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, yeah. Every time you see seen some like sci-fi movies and stuff where they will do an invisible man effect, where you just sort of like see like a little ripple that's shaped like a person. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah. Would the movie Predator, the character in that, or the
Yeah,
alien or the
the
robot
actual alien.
itself, would that be a good reference? When it goes transparent or translucent in the movie, would that be a good representation of what you saw?
Yeah, that was very close. The one I saw was a little more subtle than that. There was actually, if you, I did see an episode of Star Trek Next Generation, called Identity Crisis, that had these creatures, these people that lived on this planet. You can only see them with ultraviolet light, and the white light they were visible. And there's a scene in the show where one of these things is on a ship and it attacks the people in the transporter room, and you just had this very faint shape of a person, but nothing to it. And that was actually very close to what I saw. More of a obscure reference. I know, you know, more people have probably seen Predator than remember a specific episode of Star Trek. But
Um,
yeah, it was very close to somewhere in that.
right, right. Yeah, there's some other reports that I have come across, and some of them, have referenced a human shape or a large primate shaped
Mhm.
type figure that's translucent or transparent. And I don't know if you have heard or have done research on Bigfoot or Sasquatch, but there's there's a camp that says, hey, these things can cloak somewhat as well. And I had seen on one particular episode of Expedition Bigfoot, the cast that was there at Bigfoot Days in Estes Park, they had a particular season. I'm not sure if it was season 2 or 3, but there was a shadow of a figure that looked bipedal running in front of a cliff where a creek was at the bottom of the cliff. and I guess the light shined through the figure and casted the shadow onto the cliff or the hill that was behind it. But there was nothing in front of them, and they, never could figure out what caused that. So, um, I don't
Yeah,
know if
that's
it was shaped. Was it shaped kind of like a human,
it was just like that.
or
Probably about 5 foot tall.
okay?
Human. Okay, I saw the head and I saw shoulders and legs, and what looked like probably a torso, but it was sort of blended with the arms. But yeah, it was. You think about a chalk outline that you see in the movies, but you replace the chalk with fishing line or something that's you can barely see. That's very similar to what it looks like. You have that shape, but all I saw was the shape and not the dent.
And what time of day was this?
That's probably about 3 in the afternoon.
Okay.
So I just come home from school, was doing my chores. Like this was like broad daylight in the middle of the suburbia. This was not, in the middle of the night out in the woods somewhere. Because I used to go camping a lot up in the mountains up there, and there were stories and stuff of weird things. But I never experienced anything up the mountains. I just experienced this like right there in my backyard, and that's really feeling for a loop.
How long did it take you between, I guess, the time you went in to the kitchen and realized the glasses were sitting upright to think, okay, is there somebody in here, or was that what I saw outside involved in this little incident that occurred? Was there a good amount of time, or no?
Yeah, because when I saw the classes have been moved, my first thought was a break in, and I went into you know fight mode, clearing the house, and it wasn't until afterwards that there's no one, nothing. I couldn't explain what just happened. That's when I started, trying to think about what all I had experienced up until that point, and that's when the memory of this thing came back. At the time, I still thought it was string or plastic floating in the wind. Like I didn't make a connection that it could be anything other than you know, garbage in the air. But that one of the things I've been researching, sort of looking at, is this idea of in our modern technology, we see out movies, we see something like that, we think the predator from the movies. But I think 2,000 years ago, someone saw that, they might describe it as like the heat above a fire. Because like that ripple you get in the air, if you could shape that into a person, that's very similar to what you would what I saw. If you take a fire, take away the flame, take away the smoke and the soot, you're left with that heat mirage. Legends of like the Inuit have stories about these, hunters that will live in the woods, but you can't see them. You'll hear them crunching through the snow. You'll see their shadow, but when you turn, there's nothing there but wind. Even in the San Gabriel Mountains, the native tribes that live there, the Tongva and the Serrano, they had these idea of wind spirits that were made out of thick air or made out of the fog that would, watch you. Early prospectors had this idea of something called the canyon shimmer, which was something like similar to this, like a heat mirage, but it was like down in the canyon, and sometimes you see it at night or in the fog or times when there's not heat around. And I was like, if you see that, you need to leave because that's a bad omen. Um, or things like in Europe, you have the Fey folk, the fairy world, these creatures that can sort of disappear, and the fairy people have they'll leave a circle of stones, and that's marking their territory. Some of the legends of the jinn would be like if they came to your house, they might gather items from your house and leave them in a pile or in a line or arrange them somehow. The Inuit legends and the native California legends, their stuff in the morning. They go hunting party, go out, and in the morning they would see one of these things. The next day, all their spears would be piled up. And so that's reading these accounts, I'm like, okay, that is similar to what happened to me. I saw it saw me, and then it let its presence be known. And seeing that there's legends going back thousands of years of similar sightings, similar patterns of behavior, really, I said it's both comforting and unnerving.
Yes, no doubt, no doubt. Did you ever call the authorities?
I did not. I told my parents when they got home, and my stepdad is like, "Well, a box fell out of your closet, you probably need to clean your room," and that was all he said. I'm like, well, that's not what happened. So, I told my friends, and he just thought I was, making something up, pulling his leg, and I sort of kept it to myself like that for a number of years. But like, I was doing research on folklore, doing research on things around the world. And when I more recently I've started seeing things online of people, hey, I saw this thing that was like an invisible person, and I'm like, okay, maybe I should share my story. So just a couple years ago, I started telling a few people online, hey, this is what happened to me, and now I'm here.
Yeah,
In the hopes that this story gives someone else comfort. Maybe if someone else is too embarrassed to say, hey, I saw something.
yeah, and that's a good point you brought up. A lot of people are afraid to share stories like yours and other stories because of ridicule or people maybe not necessarily being receptive, to the story itself and just want to explain it away in a simple manner.
Yeah, and that's uh, I kind of think of this type of stuff as thinking about earthquakes. For thousands of years, people have experienced earthquakes, but you could have been an earthquake skeptic at some point in time, saying, "I've never seen one. I've never experienced one. I just heard stories of it. It can't be real. You got all these crazy stories about Atlas and Poseidon and like that." No, but it's only been the past 100 years that we've discovered, yeah, this is what caused earthquakes. Here's a science behind what happens, and now we have an explanation for it. And I think that somewhere out there is a scientific explanation for what I experienced, what some people around the world have experienced. Whatever cryptids are seeing, these are probably something very real to it that we don't fully understand yet. And at some point in the future, we're going to have some sort of scientific breakthrough that says, "Oh yeah, here's we discovered, you know, there's some alternate dimension, and Bigfoot lives on the other side, and he comes to visit and goes back, and that's why you never find bones or something."
And that's been mentioned many times. Whether that's accurate or not, I don't know that, of course, but I just had a gentleman on. I have not published the episode yet, but that was, he doesn't think that they're some sort of primate. He had a totally different explanation for it. But I wanted to share this story with you. It was from Colorado.
All right.
It happened in 2012, and there was a former park security guard at Seven Falls reported repeated encounters with a shimmering humanoid figure during night patrol, and the entity was crawling across the roadway and then stood upright and leaped into the nearby trees. And he later learned that another coworker had the same type of encounter as well, but it was a transparent or distorted figure that was human or primate shaped that did this. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that sounds very plausible to me, just with the experience I've had. Uh, the idea that it happened at night, so this is not a heat mirage. It's not. That's had I heard my own story before I experienced that, I would have thought a mirage is the heat. It's the heat waves come off the concrete that you're imagining things. But if it happens at night, that's not an explanation. The idea that it jumped up into a tree, that's fun. We don't know what type of physical capabilities something like that would have, but that's a fascinating story. I might want to maybe I'll go hiking in one of those areas sometime and see if I encounter anything.
Yeah,
Not sure if I'd want to or not, but
yeah, not sure if I want to encounter one of these. But I thought it was kind of neat on this story that the coworker gave credibility to his sighting uh, by sharing what he had seen as well. I thought that was pretty neat.
my first thought was like I could have just imagined it was a trick of the light or something. Uh, but the actual physical objects being rearranged in my house, like I didn't imagine that.
Yeah, just I'm going to ask you this, Stephen. What do you think it was?
And just based on the research I've done since then, I'm sure it's something that's ancient, that's been part of our world for a long time. I actually had a thought that the circle shapes, was that some sort of communication of like, hey, I'm here and I'm intelligent? Because, that's going to happen accidentally. Or was it something like, if an explorer, ancient or old explorers would travel a ship somewhere and they'd meet a tribe of people and they don't speak the same language, but the explorer might sit there and draw a picture of a ship in the sand to say this is who we are. If that circle represents how it transverses into our world and its world. So that's another thing. A lot of the folklore is that fairies and these other invisible creatures, they're not part of our world. They live in their world, and they come to see us and they're curious about us, but then they go back to their world when they're done. So and there's a lot of like, very brand new, cutting edge science and like quantum string theory and all that stuff that on paper the mathematics says that there should be like 10 different dimensions, not just 3 dimensions that we have, and there's other worlds made out of these other dimensions, and if they were to touch, it might appear as a portal of a circle. So I'm like, well, if this thing came through here through some sort of wormhole like tube, then that circle represents, hey, this is who I am, this is where I come from. I don't know if that's true. That's just within the past probably 6 months, I was researching some of this other stuff. And that thought occurred to me that it could be communication, just because I know the circle is not a natural shape. The stuff does just fall that way.
Right.
But it could have been something more. It could have had a message behind why it was specifically a circle and 2 circles. So it wasn't. It's very deliberate.
Yeah, that part's extremely strange. The 2, it was like you just said, it wasn't 1 circle, it was 2. And yeah,
And I'm sure me go around the house screaming like an idiot, waving a wrench around, probably they decided I was not fun to play with anymore.
Well, you definitely deterred it, whatever it was, with a
Yeah.
pipe wrench.
Yes, the
Yeah.
big red pipe wrench. But I'm thinking, if I saw another one today, I might, say, hey, did you remember me? We
Yeah.
met before?
Yes, it's just not good for plumbing, but it's good for self-defense, I guess, as well.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of mystery out there and a lot of unexplained phenomena. And sometimes, I just don't think we're meant to know everything. And even the Bible talks about other dimensions. I had someone on recently on an episode, a pastor from he's on Small Town Monsters, and talked about it as well. And it's to be curious or to do research and check out things there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Are we going to get all the answers? I don't know. It's
Yeah. And one day I will. When I get to the pearly gates, I'm going to have some
yeah,
questions.
yeah, absolutely. Yes. I'm wondering, I don't know if we can take a list with us, but maybe
Yeah.
we can file it, in our memory. But yeah, that's just uh, so many things that are unexplained. And like we talked about at the beginning of the show, the San Gabriel Mountains there's just so much high strangeness there.
Yeah,
It's
because it's that the mountain range is like right. So you have the city on one side, you have the San Bernardino, Los Angeles, the San Angeles area, civilization there, and then the other side of the mountains is the Mojave Desert.
right.
So it's which, you know, aside from being that the delineation between civilization and wasteland, apparently, it's also, you got the cool air current of the ocean and the hot air currents in the desert. We have, they call it Santa Ana winds, which are very powerful, very strong winds that, every year, it's huge winds that go through it. People who live in California will give you horror stories about, stuff blowing out of the yard, or like the neighbor's trampoline ended up on our roof. And or as a kid, every summer there would be people like re-roofing because shingles were flying off everywhere in the Santa Anas. And there was a theory that when those high winds hit and they go into the San Gabriel Valley, that the air reverberating around causes like that infrasound, which causes people to, because it's too low for us to hear, but our inner ears will still pick it up. It messes with your mind, and that's one of the things that, one of the explanations of, here's a natural occurrence that could explain some of this phenomenon. Because sometimes it's just people like, I was here and I got a weird feeling.
Yeah, infrasound
And,
is for real.
yeah.
I believe I was affected by it on a camping trip in the last few months in North Carolina. I went on a trip with a gentleman that's a Bigfoot researcher and investigator. And we had something in camp that early, or I guess would be later on in the morning around 4 o'clock. Unbelievable low guttural growls. that were very close to us, and we left camp uh, with everything except our tents, and we came back the next morning for our tents. But it really it affected me for a couple of days.
Wow.
Not only just thinking about what happened and wondering exactly what that was. It was really an intense, you know, few minutes there.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, I haven't shared that too much.
that little sound that sort of like freaks you out, petrifies you. You can't move. You're in the headlights, sort of type of thing. But yeah, that's one of that the formation of those mountains and where it is in the world with the air currents. That's one of the things that happens up there. So it's
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, I remember. Had read about I think it was a park ranger in San Gabriel Mountains were being shadowed possibly by something while working there or hiking or whatever, and hearing strange vocalizations as well. Um, what was it? Don't know, but possible Sasquatch or Bigfoot or
yeah.
something similar
I
to
had
that.
a I had a very good friend of mine that we used to go camping up in the mountains all the time, and there was one particular woods up around near Yellowstone that he would never go camping at. He said he was up there one time and he woke up in the middle of the night in his sleeping bag to like this horrible smell, and there was this tall, hairy shadow like at the edge of the campfire. And he said he'll go camping anywhere else, but he will not go camping back in Yellowstone National Park because that's where he saw this thing.
Wow.
But that's and those mountain ranges are all sort of it's different mountain ranges, but they're all like one big long geographic.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of stories that come out of Yellowstone.
Yeah, and that's where the Sierra Sounds came from. So that's
Yeah, that's a I tell you, your story is fascinating. It's really really mysterious and something that's unexplainable. Have you had anything else happen after that that's
um
caught your attention?
nothing nothing like that. I've experienced a lot of weird stuff. I experienced weird stuff before that, but I sort of dismissed it all. I experienced weird stuff after that, but I kind of paid more attention, sort of cataloged it. Uh, a lot of stuff that's more, paranormal than encrypted. Uh, I was I was in the army for a while, and I was stationed in Fort Bliss, Texas, which at the time had been developed. There was the barracks, and there was the officers' club, and there was a gym. But then there was like all this empty space. They had all the roads paved, as if they were going to put in a neighborhood, but no buildings anywhere. And I'm running early in the morning, right? The sun's just under the horizon, that crepuscule time. And it's my favorite time of the day, actually. It's right before the sun rises, and the sky is still kind of dark, but just getting light. So I'm running along, I'm not paying attention. I see this guy running towards me, and I'm thinking, I don't know who this is. He's wearing like the shorts and a white T-shirt, which I've seen some of the older guys were wearing. At the time, the uniform was like this gray T-shirt that said Army on it in big print. So like he's probably been in longer than I have. He's probably older than me. It's hard to tell because, especially in the military, like guys, they look 10, 15 years younger than they really are. But he's running towards me. I'm running towards him. I'm like, I don't know who he is. I don't know what his rank is. I don't know if I say, good morning, sir, sergeant, chief. So I'm like, good morning. And he turns and he looks at me. His eyes bug out. He looks at my uniform. He looks back at me as I run past him. And I'm like, with my luck, that's probably like the new colonel coming in, and I'm going to meet him later today, and it's going to be very embarrassing. So I quickly turn around, like in football, we call a button hook. You stop, you turn, and there was no one there. I passed probably within 2 feet of him. I looked him right in the eyes as we're going past each other, locking eyes with him, and like that, he was gone. And there was no buildings around, no cars. There was like a couple little weeds to be out, but there's like no place to hide. I was just standing there in the middle of the road by myself.
What was your initial thought?
Um, at that point, I'm like, okay, someone was right here at some point in time, and that whatever energy exists is still here. The fact that he looked at me and I looked at him, it's like I wonder what I look like to him. I wonder what he's thinking in wherever place he is at.
So you said it was early morning when that happened?
Or very early morning, yeah, it was right before sunrise. Because at first I was like chastising myself because like if I saw if the guy was running towards me, I would have seen him because there was nothing around. I mean, it was dark, but it wasn't that dark. I should have seen him before, 30, 40 feet away from me. And I just watched him running towards me as I'm running towards him. In my mind, trying thinking, I don't know who this is, but let me just say good morning anyway. And he was gone. Like I don't know how else to explain that one.
Did he make any sound or any kind of noise while he was running?
I think I don't remember hearing like his footsteps at all. I just remember seeing him. He was just running. Like I say, it was wearing an older PT uniform. It wasn't the current one. So I know some of the older sergeants would sometimes dress in that same uniform from like 10 years before or whatever. So that was a fun one. Uh, Also had a station in Arizona for a while, and we used to hang out in Tombstone and Bisbee. Just like the history of that was great. That's real Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp were in Tombstone, and my buddies and I were playing pool at a bar, and the balls kept moving and disappearing. And it's like I just line up a shot, and the ball would stop, so like roll and then stop, like right on the edge of the hole. I'm like, we kept joking that it was the ghost of Doc Holliday going, "Hey Wyatt, check this out." And he'd like move, knocking our balls to the because we're talking like I might have a shot. I looked over here and the ball I was just looking at was gone. It's in the pocket already. How to get in there, I don't know. But we were joking that it's a haunted pool table. And then like a couple weeks later, there was a thing on the news like here's the local hot spots we're going to tell you about where people see ghosts because it's almost Halloween time. And they showed a picture of that bar with the bartender like yeah there's something here I don't know what it is and then they turn around and focus it on that pool table. I'm like oh maybe that really is a haunted pool table. That's weird.
That's pretty neat.
But I kind of get
There
this
was.
feeling that
I'm sorry.
whatever it was that opened my eyes, whatever happened, probably like opened some sort of floodgate that let more stuff because I've had a lot of weird things that happened just with no explanation.
Yeah, and there was more than one witness as well to
Yeah, I had two friends with
corroborate
me
that.
that
Yeah,
were yeah. So it's like I don't know what to believe there, but I'm just gonna accept that these things happen now, and I'm not gonna try to find some sort of rational explanation if the rational explanation is this is real.
that's pretty crazy. Going back to the morning you were jogging, you startled it, or you startled the
Yeah,
is what
him. Yeah,
it
whoever.
sounds like. Yeah, him or yes.
Yeah, so I said good morning, and he like turned and shocked. I was like, in my mind, I was like, I'm not having this runner's high. That's why I didn't notice him. And when I said that, I'm like, oh, he didn't notice me either, which was weird because we were, just right there past each other. Uh, but yeah, I looked him like right in the eyes, and his eyes, and he looked down at my uniform, and he looked up at my face, and that's as we. So I'm like running, I'm like looking at him as I pass, and then for him to not, no one to be there, and this was out probably about a mile or two away from the nearest where the barracks were. So the nearest building was probably about 2 or 3 blocks away.
S-
I'm sure
So
today, if you go in there, all that area's been built up, but at the time, it was just a road with nothing around it.
so nowhere to duck into or hide or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I like if there's a boulder or a tree or something. If there was a car nearby, I would have looked around and like called out. But yeah, it was just desert, just rocks and weeds.
Pretty insane. That's
Yeah,
pretty.
it's yeah.
Well, Stephen, I appreciate you sharing your stories and taking time out of your schedule to come on the show.
And thank you for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed it. And there's something that we do at the end of each episode. I do a rapid fire Q&A where
Okay,
I'll ask the guests 3 questions, and it's just casual. It's the first thing that comes to your mind.
all right,
You ready?
okay, let's go.
All right. Number 1, favorite movie.
A favorite movie? I would say John Carpenter's The Thing.
Okay. I didn't know if you was going to say
It's my favorite horror
Predator.
film. I do like The Predator, but that's it. The Thing. I watched it when I was way too young. I had a weird babysitter that let me watch the movie when I was like 8. So I was way too, but I've been hooked on that movie. It's just psychological and also terrifying. So it's a fun movie.
Sure. All right. Number 2, name one thing on your bucket list.
Ooh, and one thing on my bucket list. I've traveled around several states in the U.S. I'd like to visit more of them. I think I've lived in about 8 different states, not counting the state of confusion. But I would like to, visit some more of. There's a lot of states I've never been to Montana or Alaska or some other states. I would like to, visit all 50 states someday.
Yeah, Montana's on our bucket list.
Yeah, it's very close. I just have a cousin who just moved there recently, so I'm like, oh, maybe I'll move that one up.
What's been your favorite state that you've been in so far?
Favorite state so far, I think Tennessee. I lived outside Nashville, Tennessee for a while. I lived there for about a year, but just the slow life that it was a huge culture shock going from Los Angeles and the city, and I moved to this little town outside Nashville that had one traffic light for the whole town. And it was like, this is a huge culture shock, such a brand new experience for me. I really enjoyed that quiet country life. I'm in Colorado where I get sort of best of both worlds there. So Colorado's, a good place to live too. But I think Tennessee was like that was my first exploration outside the city, and that's what stuck with me.
Did you ever get to go visit the Great Smoky Mountains while you were
I
there?
did. I went to the mountains, traveled back and forth to like Memphis and a couple other places. Uh, Found a place on the map, uh, Dofart, Tennessee, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna go there just to see what that is. And I drove over this area and we're driving around. I'm like, there's a gas station I passed a couple times looking for the town. I stopped at the gas station. I'm like, hey, I'm trying to find this town. Like, you're in it. I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, that's pretty neat. Yeah, the Great Smoky Mountains and eastern Tennessee have a ton of Bigfoot sightings and dogman encounters as
Okay,
well.
yeah, they're in the Appalachian Mountains too. Someplace
Yeah,
I'm kind of, I'd like to hike the Appalachian Trail, but at the same time, I'm like, I might want like 20 people with me because there's a lot of stories from that area as well.
very many. All right, number three. And I guess I may have asked you this question and the last one, but favorite place to vacation, mountains or beach? How about that?
Definitely mountains. I've like being in the trees and the woods. I've been out to the beach. I've been surfing, that kind of stuff. I don't swim very well, so
I'm in the same boat with you. I'm not a very good swimmer, and my wife loves the water. I love the mountains.
yeah, I don't float or
I
ever
don't
feel
either.
like you can't lay on the bottom of the pool. I'm like, well, I can. If I lay down the pool, I'll just sit to the bottom and just lay there for until I stand up. I'm like, I don't know what it is about me, but I'm too heavy, I guess, that I'm not buoyant.
I'm not either. I'm not a very good swimmer. Well, Stephen, I've enjoyed this. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And for the listeners, if you've had an encounter or something strange or unexplained, click on our link tree in the description and share your encounter. Thank you for listening, and God bless.